Let the lamp go out. Let the room be left with only the steady hum of the fan, like the breath of a deep sleeper. Tonight, I will not lead you into a splendid castle or a candle-lit hall, but guide you into a damp alley where cobblestones are soaked with rainwater and moss clings like old scars. There, assassins hide themselves, a cold dagger in hand, and hearts learning to beat slowly so as not to be heard. The distant church bell echoes, spreading like mist. A dog howls harshly at the city gate. The smell of damp straw mixed with the smoke of young firewood weaves through the air. In that darkness, someone walks, his form as silent as smoke, his eyes looking down. He is no hero, nor is he a monster. He is just a small footnote in the pages of history, a name not written down, only to be forgotten. Don't think anyone chooses this profession. No one wakes up and says, "Today I want to slit a nobleman's throat," in exchange for a few silver coins and a hiding place in a wooden crate for 3 days. Assassins are born not from dreams, but from hungry stomachs, from calloused hands with no more land to till, from a life that has slid too far down. The rich hire, the wretched do the work. It's as simple as that. You will hear people embellish, well-fitted black cloaks, magical daggers attached to the wrist, or hermit masters on high mountains. The truth is far different. There are no schools, only a single lesson: survive. If you fail to kill the target the first time, at least don't die, so you can learn from your mistake. And the pay, always the promise of half now, half later. Usually there's only the half now and the half later. Well, it's paid with another blade right in your own back. The world out there doesn't call assassins by flowery titles. They are called the cursed, a wanderer with eyes that know how to keep secrets, one with no home to return to. And in the eyes of superstitious villagers, he is not just a person, he is a walking omen. People stay away, except when they need to hang him as an example. Listen, your breathing has slowed. Let the darkness tighten its grip around you. Tonight, I will tell you of a profession with no glory, no medals, not even a word of thanks. A profession that knows only the metallic smell of blood and the sound of a dagger scraping against a torn leather sheath. A profession where, even in success, the only reward is to keep running, faster, farther, and more alone. If you've ever admired assassins in stories, remember this. In the real world, they don't step out of legends. They just fall from misery. And when history closes its pages, those names vanish like wisps of smoke. No one praises them. No one erects statues. There is only darkness, the darkness that remains loyal, keeping their secrets until it too falls silent. The fan in your room still hums steadily. Let it be like the wind slipping through the wooden door crack of an old tavern. Outside, the sky is pitch black. Rain drizzles on the roof tiles, leaving small drops trickling into mud puddles. Now imagine you are sitting in a tavern in a medieval border town, where the smell of mead, firewood smoke, and the sweat of a full day's labor mix into a suffocating yet familiar scent. In the darkest corner, a hand pushes a small pouch across the table. No explanation, no written contract, just the clinking sound of silver coins. And a name uttered softly, as if the wind itself was not allowed to hear. That is when recruitment happens. No interview, no application, no job description with benefits. Just one wretched soul, and another so desperate they must hire his dirty hands. The assassin's trade begins not with determination, but with ruin. If you were the child of a family with land, a dowry, a future, you would never be sitting in this tavern. You'd be at home discussing the harvest or worrying about the next season's fare. But if you've just escaped from prison or been kicked out of the army you once served, or are simply a thief too well known in the village market, then this place welcomes you. The rotten wooden table, the small flickering candle, and a whisper, "There is work for you." Don't think the clients are generous. If they need you, it means they don't want to get their own hands dirty. They sit there, rings on their fingers, eyes darting around, voice lowered. That person must disappear. Then they push a money pouch across the table like a plate of food. Usually just the first half. The other half they promise to give when the job is done. Anyone naive enough to believe in the second half is often paid with another dagger stuck between their ribs. The whispered name is always a difficult one. Nobody pays to eliminate a turnip farmer. The target is usually a tax collector, a drunken knight with 10 guards, or a bishop with so much gold that even the hymns sound metallic. In short, they are people who live in fortresses with walls, moats, servants, and you, with a rusty dagger, are tasked with turning them into a memory. That scene where the money pouch slides across is the boundary. Before, you were just a wanderer, anonymous, filthy, hungry. Afterward, you are a shadow, a tool for hire. There is no ceremony, no oath, only the silent complicity between two people who both want no one to know they sat at the same table. And from that moment on, your life shrinks, contained within a bag of silver and a name. Imagine leaving the tavern. Outside, the wind carries the smell of horse manure and damp mud. In your sleeve, the pouch of silver jingles softly with each step, a short but haunting melody. You know well, every coin in it can be exchanged for bread, wine, a place to sleep in a hay barn. But you also know that pouch of silver is a hook snagged on your fate and pulling you straight into the abyss. Recruitment in this world isn't like a new road opening up. It's like a narrow door slamming shut behind you, leaving no way back. They don't ask your name, don't ask where you're from, because if things go well, nobody needs to know. And if you fail, that name will be hung on the city gate, along with a head as proof. And yet, people still take the money. People still nod. Why? Because when you have lost everything, even a few silver coins and a dangerous target become a form of hope, or at least a reason to keep living for a few more nights. Sometimes that's all a person needs, an excuse. You hear the distant bell echoing through the night mist. You see the candlelight in the tavern flicker like a winking eye. You imagine the cold hand gently pushing the silver pouch over, and you know in that moment, fate has changed its color. There's no one raising a toast, no formal contract, just a whisper, a name, and the cold clink of silver coins. That is your only recruitment session, and it is also the last time anyone will call you by your real name. You step out of the tavern, money pouch in hand, the name in your head. It's still drizzling. The cobblestone path shines like a mirror, reflecting the flickering oil lamp. At that moment, if you expect someone to appear to teach you how to strangle in the dark, or how to use a dagger without getting blood on your clothes, then my condolences, you're in the wrong era. In the Middle Ages, there were no secret academies for assassins, no masters, no curriculum, and certainly no graduation ceremony with robes and diplomas. You learn in the only way possible, by trial, error, and survival. If you don't survive, you become an object lesson for the next person. A brutal classroom with no blackboard, only mud and bloodstains for chalk. You remember the first time you held a dagger. Old rusty iron, the tip chipped, the wooden handle slick with the sweat of many hands before you. No one showed you where to stab, how to be quick and quiet. So you tried stabbing and realized the victim only collapsed after screaming their lungs out. That night, you had to run for your life, blood staining your cloak, heart pounding like a war drum. The first lesson, killing is simple, but killing silently is an art. Poison? It sounds elegant, doesn't it? A drop in the wine, and it's over. But in reality, you have no laboratory. You have a stone mortar, a few handfuls of misidentified herbs, and sometimes toad guts. A pinch too little, and the target just gets a stomach ache and curses the kitchen. A pinch too much, and you're coughing up blood before the feast even begins. And there's no poison control hotline to call. Only instinct, luck, and a stomach used to hardship. If you were lucky enough to have been a soldier, at least you know which way to hold a dagger. If not, you fumble. Climbing walls, scaling roofs, walking on wet tiles, all self-taught. And learn it in fear. Fear of a tile creaking, fear of a guard looking up, fear of sneezing from the straw dust. There's no one behind you to correct your posture, no comrades to share secrets with. At best, you might sometimes hear a half-baked piece of advice from an older man, one who has lived long enough to whisper, "On cobblestones, place your toes first. If you use your heel, the whole village will know." But those teachers disappear faster than you can ask for more. No one retires to open a vocational school. They are either caught, killed, or simply stop coming back to the tavern. In this profession, those who came before usually just leave a void, and a few rumors that they could move like a ghost. Your weapons are hardly sophisticated either. A dagger stolen from a guard, a hemp rope for climbing walls and strangling, sometimes a small hammer hidden in your coat. All clumsily tucked away, so as not to jingle like a traveling ironmonger when you walk through the market. No shining sword, no foldable crossbow. If you had those, you'd be a soldier in a castle, not a wanderer outside its walls. So your only education is reality, raw and cold. A fall from a roof teaches you to choose dry tiles. Reaching into the wrong window teaches you that a watchdog is more loyal than its master. Being discovered in the dark teaches you how to hold your breath ever so thinly. There are no certificates, no anniversaries, only scars, one after another, like words carved onto your body. And so, you grow in the trade by bleeding in place of tuition. There are no titles like first level, second level assassin. There is only one question: will you survive tonight? If yes, congratulations, you've just leveled up. The distant bell chimes again, blending with the sound of the turning fan. You close your eyes, see yourself hanging from a windowsill, hand trembling on the rusty dagger. No one below is cheering you on. No master is nodding in approval. There is only you, your breath fogging in the cold, and one tiny misstep that could end everything. That is the only academy you've ever known, and it doesn't award diplomas, it awards graves. Do you remember the money pouch pushed across the table in the tavern? That silver pouch was cold, heavy, as if your fate had been minted into each coin. You held it, your heart trembling with a flicker of hope. At least this was the first tangible reward after months of wandering and hunger. But in the medieval darkness, nothing is cheaper than a promise, and nothing is more expensive than innocence. The client will tell you, half now, half when the job is done. It sounds fair, but the truth is that second half is often paid with another blade, not with silver. The wealthy can negotiate with merchants, can haggle with craftsmen, but with an assassin, they just want to erase all traces. And the most dangerous trace is you. Imagine, you risk your life sneaking into a castle, clinging to cold, wet stone walls, your heart beating so fast you fear the guards can hear it. You hide in a wood crate, enduring the smell of rat droppings, waiting for hours. Then you strike. One stab, one breath extinguished. Not poetic, no glory. Just a heavy corpse sliding to the floor. You wipe your hands on your clothes and leave into the night. Sweat, blood, and silence become your companions. When you return to collect the rest of your pay, what do you find? The old tavern has a new bartender. The one who hired you has vanished as if he never existed. Or worse, you find a squad of soldiers waiting. A stab to the gut is cheaper than a bag of silver, and a head on the city gate is convenient proof that the traitor has been punished. Who would question it? Who would testify for an anonymous assassin? Even when you are paid, the amount is never worth the price. You have risked your life, spent sleepless nights, skulked like a sewer rat, only to receive a few coins. Enough to buy bread, enough to rent a spot in a cowshed for a few days, but not enough to wash the blood from your hands, not enough to silence the screams that echo in your ears every night, not enough for you to have a future, just enough for you to live a little longer, and then to accept another silver pouch, another promise, and another new name in your head. Sometimes the contract is even worse. It's a trap. A clever nobleman will spread a rumor that someone wants to assassinate him. They hire you to test it, and when you sneak in, the guards are already waiting. You become the prey in a game where you thought you were the hunter. And even if you're lucky enough to survive, the whole town is now whispering. There's a shadow lurking. You don't just lose the job, you lose your own shadow. Try to imagine an assassin standing before a medieval court, trembling as he pleads, "Your Honor, I wish to sue Lord Edmund for not paying the remainder of my fee." It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? They would laugh, then hang you before you could say another word. In this profession, justice is not on your side. It was never on your side. So you learn to be tough. You start demanding more money up front. You only take what's paid in advance, never counting on the second half. You hide a few coins in the hem of your clothes in case you get robbed. You eat sparingly, sleep little, and trust as little as possible. But no matter how shrewd you become, you know the truth. This profession makes no one rich. It only gives you just enough to live, to kill again, to run again, to hide again. Every coin in your pouch is a rung on a ladder leading down to hell. They jingle with every step, a reminder that you have traded peace for a place in the darkness. And the cruelest part is, you know you will never escape this cycle. The more silver pouches, the more names, the fewer chances you have. of being remembered as a human being. You are just a hired tool, a person who does the dirty work for hands that wear gold rings. You exhale, slow and heavy. The distant bell chimes again. In the darkness, you look at the small silver pouch on the table, the candlelight illuminating its worn leather edge. Perhaps there's enough inside for a few loaves of bread, a few sips of wine. But you know, the real price has been paid with your own soul, and no money pouch is heavy enough to buy it back. You've received the silver pouch, heard the whispered name, learned the bitter lesson that the second half of the reward is often paid with another blade. Now you move on to the equipment of the profession. And this is where reality slaps you in the face once again. The toolkit of a medieval assassin is nothing like the stories, let alone the games that posterity has invented. Forget retractable wrist blades. Forget smoke bombs that let you vanish in a heartbeat. Forget the foldable crossbow tucked in your sleeve. The reality is you use what you have. Mostly it's just an old dagger taken from a drunken guard or picked up on a battlefield. The handle is cracked, the blade is chipped, and it sometimes still bears the dried blood of its previous owner. It's not glamorous, it's just sharp enough to pierce flesh, if you're lucky. And a dagger isn't always the best option. Many have to make do with cruder items, a rusty nail, a fallen roof tile, or even a shoe buckle. Hard times mean poor tools. You have no backup equipment. If the blade breaks when you need it most, you'll have to improvise with a sharp piece of wood or a rock in your hand. This profession does not forgive clumsiness, nor does it give you a replay level option. Poison, the most romanticized weapon, will only disappoint you. There are no quaint glass vials labeled instant effect. You have a stone mortar and a few things picked from the bushes. Nightshade, strange mushrooms, sometimes toad entrails. Some types make a person tremble and collapse immediately. Others just make them vomit violently, curse the cook, and then recover with twice the caution. And worse, sometimes you taste it by mistake. Instead of taking down your target, you're the one clutching your stomach, gasping for breath, and cursing your short-lived career. A hemp rope is something you can rely on a bit more. It can help you climb a wall or wrap around someone's neck in the dark. But even then, clumsiness just prolongs the struggle by a few seconds, long enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. You can imagine yourself muttering while tying the rope, "Does this not go under or over?" and then getting an elbow to the face. Nothing kills silence faster than fumbling in the dark like a clumsy apprentice. A bow and arrow? Yes, it sounds impressive, but try carrying a bow through the city gates. The guards will ask, "Who are you hunting within these walls?" And not everyone has archery skills. A missed arrow won't give you a second shot. Moreover, most assassinations take place in bedrooms, narrow hallways, or crowded feasts. No one there is going to wait for you to draw your bow, aim, and gently release an arrow. A short dagger remains the most loyal companion, even if it's crude, dirty, and nothing to be proud of. Your tools are often clumsily hidden under a tattered cloak, in worn-out boots, or even stuffed inside a hollowed-out loaf of bread to get past guards. It's not shiny, not mysterious. It's just a few rusty pieces of iron and a frayed rope, smelling of sweat and mildew. Yet that is your entire capital. You don't polish it, don't upgrade it, don't replace it. You just pray it won't betray you midway. And in the darkness, as your hand trembles from the cold, you realize the real weapon is not the dagger or the rope. The only weapon you have is silence and recklessness. The dagger can be dull, the rope can break, the poison can backfire. But if your heart doesn't falter, if your steps remain patient, you still have a chance. A chance as thin as a hair, but a chance nonetheless. You hear the distant bell chime again, its steady rhythm, a reminder that time waits for no one. The night wind blows into your sleeve, sending a chill down your spine. You gently touch the dagger in your breast pocket, that crude, ugly piece of metal. But it is your friend, your master, your lover, your only retirement plan. And you know, in this world, you are never the assassin armed to the teeth. You are just a beggar in the dark, trying to work miracles with a dull spoon and a trembling prayer. Dagger tucked in your coat, hemp rope hastily stuffed under your trouser hem, you might think you're ready. But that crude set of tools is only half the story. The other half, equally important, is how you walk through the door, blend into the crowd, and make yourself invisible. It's not with magic, it's with disguise. And the bad news is, medieval disguise is nothing like what posterity has dreamed of. There are no form-fitting black cloaks, no shiny iron masks, and certainly no super cool hoods fluttering in the moonlight. What do you have? Old farmers' clothes, usually torn at the shoulder, frayed at the hem, smelling of mud and animal dung. Or, if you're daring, you don a voluminous monk's robe, hoping people will mistake you for a pilgrim mumbling prayers. But alas, if someone asks you a basic hymn, you can only manage an awkward smile and a clumsy sign of the cross. Some choose to wear old guard uniforms. But don't think that's impressive. The uniform often still smells of the sweat and blood of its former owner. And if you happen to run into one of his old comrades, you'll be called by the right name. And that's the moment your disguise becomes a farce. Think a mask will save you? Not a chance. Face coverings were rare in those times and often suggested leprosy. If you wear one, people will indeed stay away. But they'll also bring the guards to protect the community. And just imagine trying to blend into a nobleman's feast, looking like a leper. It's difficult. The best disguise isn't about looking mysterious. It's about looking exactly like any other wretched fellow. Worn clothes, dark circles under your eyes, a limp, a slightly hunched back from hunger. People will look at you, shake their heads, and then turn away, because the image is all too familiar. The Middle Ages were full of tired bodies. A staggering shadow among hundreds of others will not attract attention. However, danger always lies in the details. Servants have strange memories. They know each other's faces. They know who looks after the horses, who carries the water, who usually hums while working. When you pretend to be one of them, just forgetting the name of the cook's cat, or spilling a chamber pot unskillfully, is enough to raise suspicion. And from suspicion to a scream for the guards is just a breath away. You learn to improvise. When asked, "Who are you?" you must be ready to say, "I am Brother Tobias, in charge of the roof tiles and silent prayers." It sounds half true, half crazy, but in the chaos, it might be enough to get you by. And if they stare, you bow your head low, pretend to cough, and walk away quickly. Disguise is never perfect. It just needs to buy you 5 more minutes. enough to get close to the target, or enough to disappear. There are also some tricks of the trade: smearing soot on your face to look older, attaching a beard with honey to appear more manly, or squinting to feign poor eyesight. But remember, the closer you get, the more obvious the lie. People will see your crooked beard or realize the blind old man walks surprisingly fast and steady. Disguise, to be precise, doesn't hide you completely. It just sows a moment of confusion, and in this profession, a few minutes of confusion are worth a lifetime. Because as soon as people wonder, "I've never seen this fellow before," you are already on the brink. You take a breath, smelling the damp wool, the salty sweat dried on the fabric. You pull your hood down further, walk slowly, eyes on the ground. Out there, the crowd bustles, everyone busy with their own fatigue. And in that sea of people, you, also tired, also hungry, also silent, slip by like a shadow. Your disguise, in the end, needs no grandeur or mystique. It just needs to make you a part of the common misery. Because in a world where hunger is etched on every face, the most frightening thing is not to look different. The most frightening thing is to look all too normal. You have the silver pouch, the dagger, the tattered cloak, and a look weary enough to blend into a crowd. But it's only when you face your target that you understand the cruelest truth. You weren't hired to eliminate a drunken candlemaker or an old nanny dozing by the fire. No, your targets are the most well-protected individuals. Noblemen, bishops, military commanders, sometimes even royalty. And they are nearly untouchable. First, there are the guards. Not just one, not two. Dozens of them in armor, with gleaming weapons, their eyes accustomed to the dark. Some stand at the gates, some patrol the corridors, some simply stand still to look intimidating. You must learn to count their footsteps, to hear the creak of door hinges, and to remember exactly which step on the staircase an old soldier usually stops on to catch his breath. One wrong beat, and you turn from a shadow into prey. Next, the fortress walls. A castle doesn't have a small guest entrance. It has heavy iron gates, a drawbridge, a deep, dark moat, sometimes filled with ferocious fish or hungry wolves. And high above, arrow slits open like demonic eyes, ready to release arrows. And if you dare to climb, remember that boiling oil is not a joke from a book. In this era, people really did pour cauldrons of it on the heads of those who dared to approach. Then there are the less mentioned ones, the servants, the kitchen staff, the scribes, the stable boys. Do not underestimate them. A strange look from you, a clumsy word, and they'll whisper to the guards faster than you can swallow your last sip of wine. In a castle, gossip is the alarm network, and medieval gossip spreads like fire on dry straw. Finally, there's your target himself, someone who lives in a world of conspiracy, betrayal, and suspicion. These people sleep behind 3 locked doors, eat food tasted by others, and even change bedrooms every night. Some even have a decoy bed lying there as bait, while they hide in another room. Killing them is not like killing a person. It's like playing a wicked game of chess, where the board is an entire castle, and you only have one trembling pawn. You hear they're attending a feast. Don't get your hopes up. Yes, they might be drunk, but you'll also be forced to drink if you want to blend in. And you'll still have to get past the royal guards, 3 hunting dogs, a jester who is so sober he's suspicious of his own laughter, and 50 witnesses holding wine goblets. A dagger in that setting, it would be louder than a war drum. Approaching the target often takes days, even weeks. You have to pretend to be a servant, bribe a gatekeeper, or hide in a crate of goods. And when the opportunity finally comes, when the candlelight flickers, when the guards change shifts, when a door opens a crack, you have only one moment, one stab, one squeeze, one extinguished breath. Everything must be perfect, no sound, no blood splatter, and then you disappear as if you never existed. Failure? It's not just death. It's the disgrace of being hung outside the city gate with a wooden sign that reads, "This is the end for the audacious." Success? It's nothing more than a desperate escape into the night, carrying the smell of blood on your shoes and the ragged breath of someone who knows they've just stirred up a hornet's nest. You take a long breath. In your mind, you see the cold stone walls, the shadows of armored figures pacing back and forth, the distant bark of a dog, and the suspicious eyes of a powerful man, scanning his bedroom before lying down. That is your target, a person protected by dozens of layers of defense and fueled by his own fear. And you, just a weary figure in a tattered cloak, must sneak in, quieter than the wind, faster than thought, and disappear before the church bell strikes its next chime. A cruel game where you must always start at a disadvantage. There is a truth that every assassin learns very early, usually after their first near-death experience. In the medieval world, a rumor travels faster than any blade. You can train your steps to be as light as a cat's, your breath as thin as mist, your hand as steady as a rock. But all it takes is a whisper in the kitchen, a glance in the stables, or a servant saying, "I've never seen that fellow before," and it's over. The entire castle, the entire town, the entire church will know that a shadow is lurking. And then all daggers become useless. Where do rumors begin? They start with the smallest people. The gatekeeper notices you passed without the customary greeting. The chambermaid realizes you're holding the broom with the wrong hand. The stable boy finds you paid too much for a spot in the hay. They don't need to be sure who you are. They just need to be suspicious. And that suspicion is enough to light a fire. In a society where everyone fears losing their head for suspected treason, the first to report something is often the one who survives. So everyone is eager to whisper. Today, you just accidentally dropped a bead of sweat into the soup pot. Tomorrow, the whole village is convinced that a foreigner is trying to poison the entire family. How fast does a rumor travel? As fast as fire on dry straw, a nanny whispers to the laundry woman. The laundry woman lets it slip to the priest. The priest, terrified, mentions it during his sermon. And by afternoon, the church bells are ringing, not to call the faithful, but to sound an alarm. Before you can even draw your dagger, the whole town has arrived with torches, pitchforks, and shouts of, "There he is! There he is!" Imagine you spend a whole week tracking your target's movements. You memorize the guard's shift changes, wait for the exact moment a window opens. But just because a cook caught you staring at the stew pot, the rumor a stranger is assassinating the master has spread like a wave. Your dagger hasn't even left its sheath, and the whole world is ready to fight you. A rumor is stronger than a weapon. A dagger can kill one person. A rumor can kill you without laying a hand on you. A dagger is only sharp when you're within reach. A rumor is sharp even before you've passed through the city gates. A dagger leaves blood on the ground. A rumor leaves a trace in the collective memory. And that is far more dangerous. They don't need to see you act. They just need to believe you might act. And that belief is enough to turn a casual glance into evidence, a meaningless name into a verdict. Once, an assassin just happened to smile as he walked through a courtyard. The next morning, the whole castle was whispering that he smiled because he knew a death was coming. They hung him from a tree with no other evidence than his smile. The danger comes from silence itself. You think silence is your ally? Yes, until that silence becomes suspicious. In the tavern, everyone is singing, making noise. You sit silently, taking small sips, and the next table starts whispering, "Who is he? Why have we never seen him sing?" From a question, it becomes a story, then an indictment. You walk in the night, cloak drawn, head bowed. People see that figure and weave their own tales. He must be hiding something. Before you know it, they have the evidence in their own minds. The evidence doesn't have to be real, it just has to be frightening enough to incite a mob. A rumor never sleeps. You can hide in a wine cellar, in a cowshed, in a cold niche in the wall. But a rumor doesn't need to sleep. It enters the soldier's ear, slips into the family dinner, flows with the mead in the inn. By the time you emerge, the rumor is already waiting, like a noose hanging over the gate. And the bitter part is, even if you succeed, kill the right person, and retreat perfectly, the rumor will outlive you. It will tell of a dark figure, that he was invisible, that he breathed death, and then with just one more unexpected death, an illness, an accident, a chicken bone stuck in the throat, they'll blame you again. A rumor doesn't die. It multiplies, proliferates, and eventually strangles you with the very shadow you created. The price of a rumor. You sit in the darkness, silver pouch in hand, dagger in your breast pocket. But out there, the rumor is miles ahead of you. Before you can strike, someone is already whispering. Someone is trying to harm the Lord. Before you can escape, someone is whispering, "He ran towards the forest." And when you finally drift into an exhausted sleep, the rumor keeps running, telling your story for you, turning you into a devil in people's imaginations. You exhale slowly, your eyes growing heavy. Let the steady hum of the fan become the distant whisper of persistent rumors. Let your eyelids close like a door temporarily shut against a storm, because when you wake up, the story will have traveled farther than your dagger ever could. And you know well, in this world, nothing is sharper than a whisper. You've heard the whispers, you've seen the scrutinizing glances, and you know that in this game, just one small mistake is enough to cost you your life. Because in this profession, failure is not a blemish on your record, not a reprimand from a superior. Failure here is the noose, the breaking wheel, the dry pyre waiting for a flame. Imagine you have prepared meticulously. You've watched your target for days, memorized every guard shift, every crevice, every gate. You've bribed the right stable boy, disguised yourself as a limping servant, and slipped into the crowded kitchen unnoticed. Everything seems to be going according to plan. But then, just a single moment of deviation. The target turns his head sooner than you expected. His child suddenly runs into the room, or your hand simply trembles as the blade touches his neck. In that instant, everything collapses. A scream rings out, guards rush in, and you know there is no way back. No one gives you a chance to try again tomorrow. No one forgives you for having a shaky hand today. One mistake is all it takes. And that end is not gentle. It is public, loud, and full of humiliation. Failure means being caught. And when you are caught, you are not allowed a quick death. They will use you as a spectacle for deterrence. You will be dragged to the public square, bound tightly, and the crowd will gather as if for a fair. There are instruments so gruesome that their names sound like cruel jokes. The bone breaker's joy, the singing iron chair. They twist, pull, heat things red hot, not to get information, but to prolong the fear. Because when you fail, you don't just bring about your own death. You bring the risk of exposing the one who hired you. He cannot let you live. If the guards don't deal with you, your own client will hire another blade to finish the job. You go from a useful tool to a liability, from a secret to evidence, and the only evidence must be erased. Failure also means you lose the most precious thing in this profession: invisibility. When the target survives to tell the tale, "Someone tried to kill me," your image instantly becomes a curse upon the land. They describe you, sketch your gait, post drawings of you on tavern walls. From a ghost, you become a hunted name. And for an assassin, to be identified is to be already dead, just waiting for confirmation. Failure carries another meaning: disgrace. You don't just die, you die to the jeering laughter of the powerful. They will tell the story of your clumsiness to discipline their soldiers and servants. They will hang your body on the city gate for children to throw stones at and laugh. In this profession, a slip of the dagger doesn't just end a life. It erases the faint, shadowy presence you worked so hard to build. And most painfully, failure often comes from the smallest details. A sneeze in the dark, a dog catching the scent of rusty iron, a door creaking just as you lay your hand on it. An entire elaborate plan goes up in smoke because of a trivial sound. And from that triviality, a fire erupts, and you are turned to ash. In a distant tavern, another might whisper, "Did you hear? Some shadow dweller got caught last night. Looked like nothing special." And so your story ends in the cheap laughter of others. You are no longer a mystery, no longer a haunting rumor. You are just an example, a corpse put on display to teach a lesson. You sigh. The hum of the fan in your room sounds like a rope gently swaying on the gallows. In your fading dream, you see yourself before a crowd, their eyes on you as if you were entertainment. No more dagger, no more rope, no more disguise. Only the cold truth. Failure in this profession is not the end of a job. It is the end of you. Suppose, by some rare string of luck, you do not fail. You have slithered past the guards, navigated the kitchen full of prying eyes, and climbed the stairs without a single board creaking. The door is ajar, the candle flickers, the target lies there, his heart fluttering like prey. You strike, quick, clean, silent. The last breath fades in the unwitnessed room. You withdraw the dagger, step back, and in that moment, you know you have completed the job. Success, congratulations. But do not think of wine, victory songs, or admiring glances. Success in this profession does not open the door to glory. It only opens the door to a new race, a race between you and the entire world. The moment your blade leaves the other's throat, the hourglass has been flipped. You must disappear as quickly as possible, There is no time to admire your work, no room for pride. You only have an escape route. And the escape route is always narrow, rough, muddy, and full of danger. You rush down dark corridors, pressing yourself against the wall as an oil lamp sways. Outside, the hunting dogs may have already caught the scent of blood. A door slams, the sound of iron-shod boots echoes on the stairs. You dash through the kitchen, hearing a maid scream as she sees your cloaked figure. Just one small scream is enough to bring the guards running. You sprint across the courtyard, slide down into the moat, cold mud up to your knees. In your head, there is only one rhythm: run, run, run. And if you escape the fortress, it's still not over. The entire region will be locked down. Gates will be barred. Checkpoints will spring up. They will distribute sketches of your face, clumsy, but enough to make everyone look at you a little longer than necessary. You walk into an inn, and the innkeeper frowns. This fellow looks a lot like the wanted man from yesterday. And you have to leave again, sleeping rough in a hay barn, using your cloak to cover the smell of blood on your shoes. Even when you find your client to collect the rest of the money, what awaits you is rarely gold and silver. Usually, he has vanished. Or worse, he has sent someone else to clean up after you. Because an assassin who has just completed job is the greatest danger. You know too much. You have proven you can reach places others dare not. And the one who hired you does not want to live in fear that one day you might return, dagger in hand. Success, therefore, means you must sever all ties. Leave behind your old name, your familiar hiding places, even the people who once smiled at you. You drift to another city, where different rags create a different life story. I am a traveling monk. I am a wounded guard. Now I just want to trade herbs. New lies to protect an old truth. And on long nights, as you lie in a stable, listening to the wind howl through the cracks in the boards, you understand. Success does not bring peace. It only brings more enemies, more suspicious eyes, more slammed gates. You get no rest. You only get to run. From one night to the next, from one city to another, like a ghost fleeing the light. People will say that a nobleman died unexpectedly, that a bishop stopped breathing in his sleep, that a knight suddenly vanished from the feast. They will gossip. They will spin tales. They will shudder at the shadows around them. But they will not remember you. No one will speak your name. No one will praise you. They will only call you by cold words. Assassin, the cursed, the knight. And while they whisper, you are running, still running, not daring to stop. You have succeeded, which means you are still alive, but alive as an exile, always carrying your own shadow. Success does not grant you a seat in the Great Hall. It grants you a one-way ticket, leading down dark roads where no one is waiting for you to return. The steady hum of the fan by your side might turn into the sound of footsteps fading into the distance. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself running through damp alleys, hiding in the scent of dry hay, your heart pounding like a war drum. Success here is not a destination. It is just a fragile permit for you to keep running until the next time. You have killed, you have run, you have survived a few long nights. But the price is not just blood on your hands, not just the cold scars hidden under your cloak. The greater price is the look in people's eyes. Because in the Middle Ages, assassins were not just feared, they were considered cursed. The peasants who have spent their whole lives believing in demons, witches, and ghosts in the forest do not see you as a human being. They whisper that only one who has made a pact with the devil could sneak past guards, could take a life with just a breath. A simple rusty dagger in their eyes has become the sword of a demon. And you, needless to say, have become living proof of the nightmares they've heard by the fireside. Some say an assassin can turn into a black cat to slip through gates or become invisible when bathed in holy water. Some even believe you can whisper to demons, call the wind, bring sickness to anyone who looks directly into your eyes. So when you walk by, they quickly look away, not out of respect, but for fear of having their soul sucked out by a single glance. Your weapon, even if it's just a dull dagger, is also woven into legend. They say it was forged in the fires of hell, dipped in the blood of newborns, or enchanted with a witch's fingernails. The hemp rope you carry in your coat? Oh, they would swear it's the hair of a virgin braided under a blood moon. Even the herbs you grind in your stone mortar are considered the powdered bones of a stillborn child. It sounds ridiculous, but in a superstitious world, a rumor is more powerful than a sword. No one dares to stand too close to you for too long. No one dares to invite you to their table. You become a shadow everyone wants to avoid, as if touching you would bring disaster upon themselves. Even the thieves who do not fear the law stay away, whispering, "Don't sit near him. What if he breathes out death?" You think that's an advantage, that this fear will help you hide more easily? But no, fear makes the crowd easily agitated. One night, if someone dies suddenly, from illness, from drink, or from choking on a fish bone, immediately, all eyes turn to you. The Dark One did it. And they won't wait to investigate. They will gather, holding torches, shouting, "Burn him alive," as if burning a person could ward off evil. You learn to move not just in the darkness, but also in superstition. You stay away from the church on holy days because there, a sermon about sin might accidentally match your appearance. You don't let people see the herbs in your bag. Don't let anyone catch your eye for more than a few moments. You know, just one wrong gesture, one whispered accusation, and the whole village is ready to turn you into firewood for the afternoon pyre. This world doesn't need evidence. It needs a story. And you, though just an ordinary man with a dagger, have been turned into that story. People shudder as they tell each other by the fire. There is one who walks in the night, cloak drawn, dagger in hand. He is not a man, he is the cursed one. And the story travels farther than your footsteps, turning you into a legend no one wants to have. You sigh, pull your hood down to cover half your face, and sit silently in the corner of the tavern. No one comes near. The plate of stew in front of you no one dares to taste. You eat in silence, swallowing along with the cold ashes of invisible accusations. You know well, you have no magical powers. You only have a dull dagger, tattered clothes, and eyes accustomed to the dark. But in the superstitious imagination, you have become a monster. And sometimes being seen as a monster is worse than being one. In the imagination of posterity, assassins and poison are a perfect match. A small drop silently falls into a glass of wine, a frown, and the powerful man slumps over at the feast. Neat, clean, elegant as a night dance. The reality is, sorry, but medieval poison was no more elegant than a stomachache. after a meal of spoiled meat. You don't have an exquisite glass vial containing snake venom with a handwritten label like in the stories. You have a stone mortar, a few handfuls of leaves picked randomly from the forest, a toad you might have caught in a mud puddle, and a vague memory of a rumor. This stuff is poisonous, my grandmother used to say so. The formula? No. The dosage? An estimate by eye. And usually, an estimate means either too little, causing the victim to just vomit and then become more alert, or too much, and you're the first one to die from inhaling the fumes from the mortar. Imagine the scene. You're pretending to be a servant, secretly pouring a black powder into the nobleman's stew. Your heart is pounding, sweat is dripping, but when the lid is lifted, the smell of herbs mixes with the smell of goat meat. The food taster takes a spoonful, chews slowly, then sniffs, spits on the floor, and grumbles, "Who put the wrong salt in this?" And you can only turn away, heart still pounding, while your target sits comfortably, his stomach full, completely unharmed. Your entire elegant conspiracy has become a bitter joke. Worse, sometimes the poison works too late. The victim doesn't die at the feast, but 2 days later, after a high fever. And guess what? They won't call it poisoning. They'll call it witchcraft. And on the list of potential witches, the stranger who just infiltrated the kitchen is always at the top. You'll see the whole village chasing you with pitchforks and torches, shouting your name interspersed with "burn him." And if you're lucky enough to succeed, the target drinks it and drops dead. That moment isn't pleasant either. They immediately search the kitchen, torture the cook, interrogate the waiters. And in that chain of interrogation, your name will sooner or later be mentioned. A cup with powder residue, a testimony half true and half coerced, and you go from a silent killer to a public target. A peaceful death for the other person is often the beginning of a painful death for you. Don't forget, a nobleman's meal always has a food taster, sometimes 2 or 3. And dogs, yes, dogs. If there's a problem with the soup, the dog will collapse first. And if it collapses, no one waits for the master's turn. They'll shout, the guards will rush in, and you'll be dragged away before the dog can take its last breath. The tragedy is this: poison is not a neat weapon, it's a gamble, and you are not a lucky gambler. Because once you place your bet, either the victim dies and you're exposed, or the victim lives and you're suspected. Either outcome brings you closer to the gallows. In the darkness, you sit by the stone mortar, crushing withered leaves, your hand trembling. You know you're not an alchemist, not a physician. You're just a wanderer clinging to the illusion that a few blades of grass can replace a stab with a dagger. But every time you try, you hear the harsh laughter of fate. You think you're elegant? You're just mixing the worst soup of your life. So many assassins give up on poison altogether. They choose the dagger, the rope. Those are crude, dirty, noisy, but at least they are certain. At least they don't turn you into a game of chance at a feast. And if you have to die, you die by steel, not by accidentally tasting the stew you just seasoned. You exhale, listening to the steady hum of the fan, like the slow turning of a mortar stone in a dream. In the night, you see your own shadow bending over to grind leaves, the candlelight casting a pallid glow on your weary face. A drop of sweat falls into the mortar, mixing with the herbs. You know well, the elegant weapon that people dream of is just a cruel lottery. And usually, you are the loser. People still think if an assassin succeeds, if he kills a tyrant, destroys a lineage, or changes the course of history, surely his name will be remembered. A resounding name, an immortal whisper. But the reality is different. You will never be famous. Your client doesn't want you to be famous. They hired you precisely because you are obscure. They need you to be a shadow, leaving no trace, making no noise. Fame is a luxury, and in this profession, luxury means danger. The less known you are, the more at ease your client is. And if anyone knows your name, that's when your days are numbered. Imagine you have delivered the perfect blow, making a baron disappear from the feast as if he never existed. History changes. But the next day, the story is not about you. It's about God's grace, or a sudden heart attack, or a mysterious accident. People rush to apply a neat explanation because no one wants to admit that a single anonymous dagger has shaken a throne. And you, the one who actually did it, vanish into thin air, unremembered. There are no statues with your name carved on them. No folk songs about the man in the shadows. If there are, they are cautionary tales. Do not oppose the king, or you will disappear like Lord Ulrich. But in that song, you are just an invisible whisper. Someone did it. No one knows who. You are not the main character. You are just the shadow behind the curtain. You also have no trophies to keep as mementos. You can't show off the ring of the man you killed, can't hang the target's cloak on your wall. Because every piece of evidence is a ready-made death sentence. While knights show off their scars and spoils of war, you only show off silence. And silence never brings fame. Don't dream of a future generation worshipping you as a legend. They will worship the kings, the warriors, even the tyrants you killed. Because history is written by the survivors, and you are never one of them. Your name, if it ever existed, will be buried or turned into a scary story for children. Go to sleep, or the shadow man will come. Sometimes the only fame you get is infamy. They attribute crimes to you that you never committed. Every unexpected death, every strange disappearance, all can be blamed on you. You become a monster in the imagination, not a person in history. And when the whole village builds a pyre, they don't need to know who you really killed. They just need to believe he is the assassin. The most bitter part, even the rare assassins who survive for a long time, changing their names dozens of times, running their whole lives, eventually disappear into oblivion. An unmarked grave, a skeleton no one collects, a name no one mentions. No one remembers, no one tells. And that, right there, is the greatest glory this profession can offer. You sigh, feeling your eyelids grow heavy, listening to the fan turn steadily, like the rhythm of time erasing everything. Each sound is a reminder. No matter how successful you are, how sharp your dagger, how silently you sow death, the end is only silence, an absolute silence that no one questions, no one carves a name for. And in that silence, you are neither hero nor villain. You are just a blank space, an exclamation point erased from the page. Not famous, not immortal, leaving nothing behind but a faint shadow fading from the memory of the world. In the murky world of assassins, there's a rule not carved in stone, but seared directly into the flesh of anyone who has survived too long. Betrayal is a certainty. Not if, not maybe, only when. Your client, when he comes to you, often trembles in the dark, whispering the target's name as if unburdening himself. He presses a pouch of silver into your hand, eyes darting around, his promise sounding firm. At that moment, you might think you found a rope to pull yourself out of the mud of poverty. But the truth is, you've just tied another noose around your neck. Because the client never sees you as an ally, you are just the dagger he doesn't want to hold himself. Once the job is done, that dagger becomes dangerous. Who can guarantee you won't come back, won't whisper to someone else, won't accidentally reveal a detail? Someone like you, who has proven you can kill, is, in their eyes, the biggest threat. And the only way for them to feel safe is to eliminate you. Some are even more sophisticated. They hire you, but at the same time, they hire someone else, waiting in the shadows to clean up after you once you've finished your work. 2 contracts, 1 name. The second person never knows who you are. He only receives an order. There is a shadow that needs to disappear. And so, from the moment you agree to the job, your sentence has already been signed. If you are foolish enough to think of blackmailing your client, my condolences. You hold a secret in your hand, thinking it's power. But in the Middle Ages, a secret is not gold. A secret is a burden, and people cast burdens aside. The moment you open your mouth to demand more silver, you immediately become a thorn that must be pulled out. Because powerful people don't bargain with daggers, they break them. And betrayal doesn't just come from clients, it can come from those you might tentatively call colleagues. A thief who once taught you how to walk quietly on cobblestones will readily point you out in exchange for a safe spot in the dungeon. A rogue you once drank with on a drunken night sells your name for a hot meal. For someone considered a shadow, no one wants to maintain a friendship for long, because a friendship with you also means risk. Most painfully, betrayal also comes from the moments you long for someone to understand you. A fleeting lover who discovers you always startle in your sleep. A child who accidentally sees the dagger under your pillow. Those people, out of fear, greed, or just to save their own lives, will talk. And those words travel farther than any dagger. You know this well, so you live in constant suspicion. You trust no one, keep no one too close. You eat alone, sleep alone, walk alone. But suspicion is also an invisible shackle. It gnaws at your mind, making you see betrayal even where there is none. A stranger's glance, a smile that lasts too long, is enough to make you tense. You become a wild animal, always smelling a trap. And the tragedy is, sometimes you're right. The traps really are everywhere. A fake message, a secret meeting, a pouch of silver left in the wrong place. You walk into a dark room, thinking you'll receive your reward, and instead, 10 swords are waiting. You drop your dagger with a trembling hand, and a single thought flashes through your mind. I should have known. For an assassin, betrayal is not a shock. It is a breath. You expect it, you wait for it, you know it is coming. The only question is when, from whom, and how. You sigh. The steady hum of the fan sounds like the whisper of betrayal swirling around you. In your drowsiness, you see a faint face pushing a silver pouch across a table, lips curling into a smile, but in that smile, a blade is already glinting. And you know, in the end, the biggest betrayer is the very profession you clung to for survival. Suppose, by some rare string of luck, you have overcome it all. The dagger didn't break, the poison didn't backfire, the client didn't betray you yet, the guards didn't catch you. You have lived longer than most of your colleagues. One day, you sit in the darkness, thinking, perhaps it's time to put down the dagger, find a peaceful roof over my head. Sorry, that doesn't exist. In this profession, retirement does not exist. There is no small cottage by the river, no quiet vegetable garden, no long sleep in a warm house. Because your memories, the secrets you keep, and the blood you've spilled, none of them retire with you. They follow you persistently, like a shadow that stretches to the end of your life. Even if you put away the dagger, the rope, the cloak, your old name remains in the memory of others. And others do not forget. It could be a nobleman seeking revenge, a family wanting to avenge their honor, or a young colleague wanting to prove himself by hunting you. You think you have disappeared, but in their eyes you are just waiting to be dug up. And even if no one is hunting you, you yourself are no longer the person you once were. Years of living in suspicion have corroded your mind. You can't sit with your back to the door, can't sleep without touching the hilt of your dagger, can't hear footsteps without panicking. Ordinary people call it paranoia. You call it a survival habit. And that habit doesn't just go away, even if you beg it to. You try to build a new life, pretend to be an herbalist, a beggar, a gatekeeper. But your eyes, accustomed to observing, always give you away. People look into them and see a coldness that doesn't belong to common folk. They whisper, "He's done something, he's not ordinary." And that alone is enough to make you a new target. There are no old colleagues to sit and tell stories with by the fire. No secret society to award you a retirement medal. An assassin never has a last day. There are only two outcomes. Either you die young or you grow old trembling, living like a ghost, always waiting for the final knock on the door. On long nights, you lie on a straw bed, listening to the wind howl through the wooden cracks. You think you hear footsteps. You jolt upright, cold sweat on your brow. But there's no one there. Only the darkness staring back at you. You realize you don't need enemies to be hunted. You hunt yourself. That is the greatest tragedy, a profession with no exit. People can give up their swords, the battlefield, the throne. But an assassin cannot give up his own shadow. You don't retire. You just fade gradually until you disappear, unnoticed, unremembered, unmourned. You gently close your eyes, letting the steady hum of the fan turn into the cold wind of a medieval night. In your dream, you see yourself walking, back bent, hair gray, but your hand still clutching the old dagger. Not because you need it, but because you can't let it go. And you understand, an assassin never has a stopping point. Only a long, dark road that ends in silence. By now, you are probably thinking, perhaps I could still manage. If I'm clever, if I'm lucky, if I'm careful with every step. But let's drop the if. Because in this profession, a simple truth echoes in every damp, moldy alley. You will not survive, not for a week. Probably not even for a day. You start with an illusion that you will be as swift as the night, as controlled as an invisible hand, a whisper that brings death. But in reality, from the very beginning, you are just a starving person in a makeshift cloak, holding an old dagger with a trembling hand, stepping lost into a game 100 times bigger than yourself. You sneak into the city, hood covering your face, thinking you've blended in. but all it takes is a sharp-eyed stable boy noticing your strange gait, an old woman in the kitchen asking, "Where are you from?" and your disguise collapses. People will point, "That one, he doesn't belong here." And suddenly you see the entire crowd turn into your enemy. You think the dagger is your ally, but a dagger can break, can be dropped, can clatter at the exact moment you need silence. You think poison is the way out, but poison might only give the victim a stomach ache, while you get accused of witchcraft. You think running fast will save you, but medieval streets are full of slippery mud, sharp cobblestones, and random chickens darting across your path. You fall, and a hand as heavy as a stone presses down on your back. The game ends there. Even if you escape, you are only delaying the inevitable. Because behind every contract is a client who is secretly sharpening a dagger for the day you become a liability. Behind every rumor is a mob eager to light a fire to burn the man of shadows. Behind every night on the run is another dawn, where you must start the game all over again, exhausted. And if you, by some miracle, live longer than most of your colleagues, you are not truly living either. You are merely existing, in trembling, in suspicion, in constant fear. Every knock on the door is a racing heart. Every stranger's glance is a silent accusation. Every dream is a recurring nightmare. Your hands are drenched in blood, and you can never wash it clean. History will not remember you. No statues, no songs, no trace. Even your death will make no noise. A body hanging outside the gate, a forgotten name, a figure vanished from the records. People will whisper for a few days, then fall silent. And that silence is the true tombstone. You take a breath, long and heavy. The fan spinning in the present-day room sounds like a church bell tolling, slow, steady, signaling the end. Your eyelids close, your mind slips into darkness. There you see a wet, stone road stretching endlessly. You walk, your cloak heavy, the old dagger scraping against your hip. But at the end of the road, there is no light, no peace, only fog, cold, and an all-consuming silence. And you understand, this is the final word of the profession. There is no glory, there is no reward, there is no way out. There is only one simple, brutal, but certain truth. You will not survive. So we have walked the full path of a medieval assassin, from receiving the first silver coins pushed hastily across a worn wooden table, to trembling while fleeing into the night, and then disappearing into oblivion. A life without glory, without warmth, filled only with suspicion and dried blood on the hands. But as you close your eyes, you might see them with a different perspective. Behind the fearsome shadow that people whispered and cursed, there was actually just a person, someone cornered by life. They did not choose to become assassins. They were pushed into it by poverty, by desperation, by a world that was too cruel to leave them any other way to live. In the tired eyes behind the hood, you might see something familiar, the fragility of human existence. Someone who once had a family, who once laughed, who once hoped, and then lost everything, with only the darkness left to lean on. No one wrote their names in the history books. No one praised them in songs. But they existed. They walked through narrow alleys, trembled under the moon, listened to their own hearts beat as fast as a death drum. And in that brief moment, they too were human. They too longed to live, just like any of us. Tonight, you can slowly let go of that burden. Let this story drift away, like smoke dissolving in the wind. Close your eyes and let the surrounding darkness no longer be a source of fear, but just the gentle blanket of sleep. Sleep now, dear friend. Though history has forgotten them, we can still remember, not to praise, but to pity. Because among those called the shadows, there were also hearts that once beat for life. And now, in the steady rhythm of your breath, we let them vanish, like the last shadows leaving a stone wall. Only silence remains, enough for you to rest peacefully. And for those nameless assassins, after so many centuries, to finally be at peace.